So as that's coming down, that little bit of flexion into that lead wrist is managing that club face, and that's what's giving us great compression on the way through here. All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to touch upon a topic that we have spoke about here on the channel before, and we have broke it down for you guys and explained the value of how to compress your irons, how to get more distance, more consistent strikes, really capitalize on that great club head speed or whatever club head speed you have, and maximize the amount of energy that that club head speed can produce in the form of ball speed. We're going to use the HackMotion device today to show you how to do that. We're going to isolate the wrist angles and explain exactly how to maximize the distance on your irons. All right, guys, no matter where we go, no matter where we play, who we play with, I guarantee we all have someone that we can think of, comes right to the top of our mind, that is maybe reasonably good on distance when it comes to their driver. They can take advantage of getting a low amount of loft on that driver. But when it comes to irons, they are shorter proportionately than their distance should indicate. So what that basically means is the amount of dynamic loft that we're presenting at impact is too high. And there's lots of different ways to do that. We'll run through a few of those today, but really today we're kind of here to talk more about the solutions and fixes than we are hanging on too much onto the sort of the problems. So when it comes to ball striking, we know that we want that low point to be ahead of the golf ball. We're trying to get a divot that kind of is out in front of the golf ball, okay? And the only way we can do that is to have the appropriate amount of downward angle of attack with the appropriate amount of forward shaft lean. Now, it's not that amount of shaft lean. I see some people doing demonstration drills and they're kind of angling the shaft 30 degrees forward. That is a recipe to do nothing good in the game of golf. No one does that particularly well. You do want to lean the golf shaft probably somewhere in the region of 7 to 10 degrees when it comes to a 7-iron. That's going to get you turning this 33-degree golf club down into something about 25. That would be, for me, on my GC quad here, that would be me getting a decent amount of energy into this golf ball. Okay, so let's hit a couple. And for the purpose of talking about the wrist angles, we are going to remind ourselves, when the wrist moves into this cupping, we call that extension. When it moves into this bowing, we're going to call that flexion, okay? Extension, flexion, okay? So if we think of Dustin Johnson at the top of his golf swing, very much a wrist inflection. There's some people over the years that we can think of. Ernie Els was one for sure that had a bit more extension in his wrist angles, but we want to kind of make sure we remember those two terms, because when we look at the data on the HackMotion, it will be a measurement of, again, extension versus flexion. So let's hit a couple demonstrating the golfer that does not maximize the distance that they get on their irons. Okay. Today, for the purpose of this, because I think when we talk about the amount of energy we produce, we have to standardize the input club head speed. I'm going to guess, Case, that was about 87?
87.2, yeah.
Was it really?
Yep.
Okay, good. Let's keep it around that, because if we can standardize the club head speed, we can really show you guys. Now, that wasn't terrible, if I'm being honest, but this is a 33-degree golf club, and I delivered 30 degrees of loft. So peak height was probably, what, 90?
Peak height was 103.5.
Was it? It was very high then. Okay, not much penetration to that. Okay, let's do one more in extension, and we'll look at the number there. Okay, so at the top of the swing, we had 22 degrees of extension. I actually did have 6 degrees of flexion. So I did actually do not too bad of a job there. Okay, so let's see if we can add a little more extension to replicate those weaker swings, again at 87-ish. What's club head speed?
88.3.
Okay, we're ballpark, we're the same. We increased the amount of extension at the top of the swing there to 33. We had a very cut wrist there. We're actually doing not too bad of a job of getting that back down. That's just obviously what I am used to doing. Dynamic loft in that one case?
31.6.
Okay, so we are definitely losing some distance now. The first carry was what, 163?
The first carry was 163, and this was 155.
Good, and we're getting a lot of spin. We're getting a lot of sort of misdirected energy when it comes to this one, okay? Let's do one more. Okay, give me the dynamic loft on that one.
35.3. Club speed 88.9.
Okay, so club head speed is good. I mean, 7-iron at 89 miles an hour there or thereabouts, but that one carried 153. That's a pretty miserable return on your investment, and your investment in this case being your club head speed. You don't really want a miserable return on your investment in anything you do in life. So let's talk about how we're going to turn this around. That angle of attack is getting really shallow. Actually added 2 additional degrees of loft there. This 33-degree golf club became 35. We talked about 25 being the optimized amount of delivered loft really for someone like myself, about 8 degrees of forward shaft lean. We're going to talk about how we're going to do that. All right, guys, hopefully we've piqued your interest a little bit in terms of the promise of more distance, more explosive energy coming into the irons. And I'm clearly manufacturing a situation there where I am getting the wrist in a really weak position to demonstrate losing distance. Let me show you how to get that back, okay? So, I'm not going to change anything about my ball position. I did not intentionally put that ball position up. I'm not going to intentionally put it back here in order to try to change the dynamic loft and change the angle of attack. I'm purely talking about where that wrist position is in terms of the delivery, okay? So, in the backswing, what I really want those of you who are struggling with this to focus on, it's almost like as we take that club away, we're doing a little bit of a wrist curl. So it's almost like the sort of logo on the glove, if you have one and wear one, making sure that as that wrist comes away, you've got a little bit more flexion initially in the takeaway. And obviously, we've got the recording here in the live session on the HackMotion. I want that extension to turn into flexion as we take that club away, okay? And obviously maintain that to the top and as we get to impact. Okay, so that's the first thing I want you guys to focus on. So let's have a couple focus on that initial takeaway. Okay, marginally better there. What did we get dynamic loft in that one in their case?
26.6.
Good, so we went from 35 to 26. So definitely moving in the right direction. Efficiency?
1.3.
1.3, okay, good. Okay, so we're going to go into a couple little drills here. Before I get you hitting too many full shots, what I want you really to focus on is a shortened version of the forward shaft lean. So let's go into a position where we're going to take that club a little bit more face down. Like I said, a little bit more flexion in that takeaway. That's going to manage the dynamic loft really well. And I just want you to start with some very short swings initially. Okay? If we can control that dynamic loft much, much better, start to get a feel for this compression, this holy grail. So what was dynamic loft there, Case?
24.3.
Okay, so we're about our number. 25 was ideal. So again, let's do the same deal. Shorter swing, more flexion as we take it back. Okay, starting to get more energy into it. How were we there?
25.5. 87 club speed. 162
87.
carry.
Okay. That felt like the most effortless yet energetic contact yet. What were we at there?
It was 25.9 dynamic loft.
Okay.
87.6 club speed. 169.5 carry.
Good. So we're starting to bump that carry up quite a bit. We're into a really nice spot here. Again, if those of you, when we're following along in the HackMotion, what we're seeing is the amount of flexion that we have at address. At the top, I have about 8 degrees less. And then at impact, I've actually got about 22 degrees less at impact. So it's just demonstrating, guys, the sort of feel that as the club is coming down, we can see the motion to try and get the loft if we go into the face on here. So as that's coming down, that little bit of flexion into that lead wrist is managing that club face, and that's what's giving us great compression on the way through here. I think it's so good, and obviously we've got the HackMotion on live mode here. I could be playing around with these wrist angles while looking at the HackMotion device here. So I'm literally going, okay, top of my swing, flexion, impact, more flexion. Okay, I've got that feel. Top of the swing, impact. Top of the swing, so get it around 0, impact. Okay, and then coming in to actually hit the shot itself and try and recreate that to the best of your ability. Not bad. A little bit to the right, but it felt like it was similar to the last one, Case.
Yeah, 25.3 dynamic loft.
Okay, good.
169.9 carry.
Excellent. I like that. All right, guys. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a better idea as to how we use those wrist angles, especially this lead wrist, in order to create more energy. Looking back through the HackMotion data, at impact with the first few swings, I was about neutral on my wrist alignments. At impact, I was maybe 1 degree further into flexion than I was. Now I'm about 12 to 15 degrees of flexion at impact. That's transforming or turning itself into about 6 to 8 degrees of dynamic loft change. If we think of the clubs that are loft gapping, that's the difference between hitting the 7-iron like a 9-iron and hitting it like a proper 7-iron. That's exactly what we want. We don't want to be turning, you know, our sort of least lofted clubs into more lofted clubs. We want to almost be going that other way. Okay, so let's make sure from the exact same setup position, I'm not asking you to strengthen the grip. I'm not asking you to do anything. I'm just educating you and helping you understand the implications of making sure those wrists don't get into that really weak position at top. We retain a fairly neutral flat lead wrist, and then at impact have some amount of flexion as we come forward, okay? See if we can just do one more. So starting to get up there. You know, we were struggling around 155 carry. We're now 22 degrees of delivered loft in that one. That was the most flexion that we've kind of had, or that relationship of flexion. And then we've turned that into 22 degrees of delivered loft, guys. So turning that 33-degree lofted golf club into 22 is how you're going to produce effortless energy when it comes to your irons and ultimately get that distance that your club head speed merits. Don't leave it on the table. Don't leave all the energy going into the club and not getting it out of the golf ball out on the other side. Being able to practice in real time with something like HackMotion is an incredible tool. These are really expensive in order to manage your dynamic loft and give you all the data points that you want. This is really not that expensive in the grand scheme of things when it comes to usable, intelligent technology that can help you with your game. So something to think of, something that if you don't want to stretch all the way to the information that this gives you, something like this will really, really aid your practice time and help you guys an awful lot, maximizing the club head speed you've got and turning it into effective ball speed. All right, guys, hope that all makes sense. Please let us know, as always, in the questions. Do you have anything else that you want to know about iron compression? It seems to be one of those topics that is highly Googled, really, really, people are curious about how to create more energy. Let us know in the comments what you would like to know. We've done some stuff, as we said, on weight transfer in our live lesson with Ryan. We talked about how to efficiently shift weight. That's another thing that drives energy into the golf ball in the form of forward shaft lean. It's helped me specifically a lot on my wedges to get a little bit more energy out of those too. So use the comment section, let us know. And as always, if you like the channel, like this video, subscribe, let your friends know. It means the world to us. Stay tuned for more. We'll see you again soon.